Hey everyone, Mr. Mom Collectibles. I am back with another 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. And today we're going to be looking at one of my most anticipated figures to get in. Thank you so much to Jeremy Casa over at Plastic Hero Collectibles for being able to get me this piece. And this is none other than the Superman from Batman v Superman. This is one just been super excited ever since, being able to see the first promotional photos. And so we're going to dive right into it. Now, one of the first things I want to address, and I've been seeing some criticisms, was the packaging. And if you've had Inart figures before, you might be used to the unboxing experience. But this figure specifically, people have criticized the way that the figure has been packaged in terms of just the simplicity, comparing it to even potentially third-party quality where it's just foam and, a plastic clear bag. And, my thoughts on this are, well, the foam is meant to protect the figure and everything included. And if it did, well, then it did its job. And for those out there that want to criticize the foam packaging, I feel like, you're criticizing to criticize. Well, then drop a comment and let me know what packaging changes you would like to see if you're one that thinks that this is basic and, like I said, it's comparable to third party. Instead of complaining, drop a comment and let me know what you would like to see differently. But that being said, everything came intact, no issues, the figure, the hands, the accessories. And then when you remove this foam, underneath is also the base along with some other accessories. And this is what the actual figure looks like. I just want you guys to see what it looks like with the plastic bag. And they have swapped this out. I think the first few Inart figures, the Joker at least, was all white, but they have gone to clear. So this is what the figure looks like. I just wanted you guys to see firsthand what it looks like right out of the box, but we're going to get them a little straightened up and in the light box first. All right, now what we're going to do is snap on this $1,000 macro lens. I kid. $30 accessory on Amazon. We're gonna just dial in on some of the accessories. Now, one of the things I think is overlooked a lot are hands. Inart, aside from the peg system, which I will address later, the hands are phenomenal. The paint application, the attention to detail on it, they're just really great. And what I really do like about this compared to Hot Toys is the hands specifically are unique to that individual figure. So Gandalf, his hands are, obviously older, have different kind of markings. Bruce Wayne are different, and here is Superman. Unlike Hot Toys, where we know that they do repurpose certain sets of hands, figure to figure. Here, these are very unique, and I think that is an overlooked aspect. Now, this one hand individually has the magnet on there, I should say, that works on the BVS cowl. Now, I want to take a look at this for a moment. Is this a hint at things to come in the future? Well, we're going to see. But this is just an empty cowl, and the magnet system works where it just pops right on the top. And it's, the scene in the nightmare sequence when he pulls the mask off of Batman. Now, we will be actually comparing this to the Hot Toys version because I was interested to see how this stacks up in terms of the overall scaling. But there is a magnet right there you can see, and surprisingly, Inart did something with magnets that actually works correctly. And there are the indentations that you put the hand on. So it fits, does what it's supposed to do, and it works for some good photos and video photography if you want to replicate that scene. And even if you have the Hot Toys Nightmare Batman, it makes for some pretty good photography and shots. Next, we're going to be looking at the Rock of Kryptonite. Pretty basic, not much here to talk about. It replicates what it's supposed to, and once again, another accessory here for the figure itself. Not a bad piece. And then we also have the smoke grenade that blew up in his face when he caught it, and there is a hand for that if you want to have him catching that in mid. And then we also have the photos of Martha that were there to, attention to detail of them are really great. Once again, with these accessories with Superman, which I'll recap at the end, I mean, they're giving you everything they can. I don't know if there's any other things that they could have given you to accentuate the figure. And then here is the secondary angry sculpt, which has the rooted curl, and it comes in a bag. The sculpt itself is absolutely phenomenal. Both sculpts are. If you're seeing, just photos and stuff, it doesn't do it justice. The sculpt, the angry, I mean, that's Henry Cavill right there. That is Henry Cavill with that angry expression, which I think is just utterly fantastic. Now, the S curl, it's an epic fail in my opinion. Whose ever idea was it? It's stupid. You can see there, I am zooming in on purpose, but there is a color differential between that and the sculpted hair. It's just a silly thing that they never should have done. Having the figure in hand, I now wish that they went and had an all rooted option, because we'll compare sculpted hair, on this piece compared to Hot Toys in a little bit, but the sculpted hair is good. I don't think it's great. And like I said, that curl doesn't do anything. It literally adds nothing to the figure. So they could have had that curl sculpted, and it would have done the exact same thing. It has material in it, like some kind of application, so it doesn't move. So therefore, it really serves no purpose at all. But the expression is pretty unbelievable. You see right here. Anyone who thinks that that's not Henry Cavill, you're kidding yourself. This is a absolutely phenomenal head sculpt. Now quickly moving on to the base, which this has this little removable attachment that has the flight pole, which we will see. This is Inart's first figure in flight. Now the base is very basic, no pun intended, but the top layer of it, if it makes sense, is actually heavier, so it's top heavy. That's obviously meant to support the figure when in flight. It still has the magnetic system, which it does work, but I still just don't like the system. I believe they are doing away with these two separate pieces. The figure does magnetize to it really well. I have yet to had any issues of it falling over or anything of that nature. So it does work. It's just it's a simplistic design. The base is nothing special. I wish Inart would have stepped up and given us some kind of diorama base better than what this is. It definitely looks similar to the Bruce Wayne base, if I recall. And that's the flight pole, just sticks right in. And I will talk about the flight pole system in a little bit as well. Just want to go over and show that. And then finally, we're going to look at the capes, which, believe it or not, I know I'm drooling over, but the capes are one of my favorite things of the figure. Believe it or not, the quality of them are fantastic in terms of the wired and the drape. Kudos to Inart for thinking of giving us two versus Hot Toys giving us just either or. In this case, they gave us drape capes with the Justice League, and the black suit had wire. So I like the idea of them giving you two swappable options. The wire is incredibly strong. It basically runs along the perimeter of the cape, and you see the material is just really great. I did a lot of outdoor shooting with this, including the drape, and you'll see how that is a little bit later in the review. And it has these tabs that insert into the chest holes on the shoulders of the figure itself. And this will be just a quick close showcasing of the figure on the magnetic display base. Now, one of the things about the sculpt that I have to stress, which I've seen this in other comments about this, is the neckline, the seam on the back. It really does deter away from the sculpt depending on which way you look at it. You can see there, it looks very toyish, but then from certain shots, it looks like, Henry Cavill standing there in my light box. I don't know if it would have worked, but I kind of wish that maybe the hair itself, they sculpted it a little bit over the neck, over the seam line, so maybe you wouldn't see just that seam. It looks like the hair literally runs up to the edge of the seam of the sculpt, and maybe if they did a little extra and had the hair actually hang over, that might actually work and kind of eliminate that, but nevertheless. And when it comes to the suit, it's super fragile, super thin, and they've done the same technique as Hot Toys with a metallic body underneath to allow the metallic to show through. But it's going to have bunching. It's screen printed. I don't recommend doing anything, keeping it in any drastic poses, because you're always running the risk of potentially, if the material kind of sticks to itself, if in a crease, it may be hard to undo that. Same thing as Spider-Man. Now, this is definitely one of my two biggest issues with this figure, is the peg system. And you're seeing it live here, me trying to swap the peg out. And so I removed the stock hand, and I just wanted to put something else on, a different hand. The peg itself, there's nothing special. It's a regular peg system like Hot Toys, but the actual peg on the arm is so thick and very loose left, meaning, you'll see in this video, I definitely thought that I almost snapped it right off. But it's amazing to me how from figure to figure we have to struggle with Inart in terms of figuring out a proper peg system. I do not think that this is stressed enough in other reviews, because this is fundamentals of 6-scale figures. This isn't necessarily, you're not reinventing the wheel. I mean, the peg system is something that everybody's using, and yet Inart cannot figure out a proper system that works and stick with it. It seems like so far, all three figures I have, the Gandalf, the Inart Batman, Bruce Wayne, and now this, every one of them have had issues with the pegs one way or another. This being the worst of the three. And the main problem is, aside from trying to get the peg on, normally what you would do is just hold the arm of the figure with one hand and then use your other to put the peg on. But the problem is the suit is so damn slippery, and also you do not want to cause damage to it. It's difficult to get grip with your one arm. Ultimately, what works is if you have a heat gun or a blow dryer, if you're doing 6-scale, you should have that in your toolbox. You should heat up the hand to soften up the hole of the peg, be able to put the peg on. But if you're trying to do it, I'm not saying every figure is going to be like this. There's other collectors that maybe aren't as bad, but I have seen a couple posts online with people stressing how hard it is to just do this swap as is. And ultimately, I gave up on it. I thought I had the hand on, and then it wasn't fully secured. I ended up just putting the one that came with the figure back on. You can see here, right there is when I thought I almost broke it. I did not, and I didn't want to run the risk of any further damage to the suit. So therefore, for the sake of the review, I just was able to pop the stock hand back on. But in order to do hand swaps, I was using my heat gun itself. So that's something that you should have in your toolbox. Now to remove the cape, it comes with the drape already on, so what you do is just lift up over, and there's these two tabs already in. You just pull them right out. It's very easy to do, and then you just pull the other side out. I personally always steam my stuff, the capes, so this drape you don't have to, but there was a couple creases in it the way it came, so I actually just steamed it I wanted it as crisp as possible. So you don't have to do that, but I did it with the Gandalf drapery soft goods, so that's just what I do personally. So you see the tabs that are there. They're not lined up with the suit. You have to kind of, when you're ready, you push the suit, you have to line the holes up. So there's holes that are cut out of the suit, and then there's that actual holes in the body to accept the new the other cape. As you can see, the silver on the back, and then here is the zipper, which is very easy to, you can move it with one hand if you really wanted to, and you will have to do this for the flight system. So when you unzip the suit, you have to leave it open, and then there is the hole at the base of the spine that you would insert the acrylic piece for the flight pole. I do have concerns about this. So when I originally was going to get this figure, my intended pose was to have him in flight with the angry expression. That's what it was showing off a lot at Inart events. But after having this figure, he will no longer be in that pose, and the reason why and you'll see in a moment the reason why that is such. But basically, I have concerns about the flight pole system potentially damaging the suit, because you actually have to pull, at least on my copy, I have to pull the suit down in order to insert the acrylic piece. But I will show you guys that in a moment of how to do the flight pole system on the suit, on the figure itself. But like I said, you move up to the figure, and now we are going to put the wired cape on so you guys can get an idea of how to install the cape on the piece. So as you can see, it's very simple to do. When you put the pin, the actual piece in, just make sure you press it and kind of get it in place. If you think it's a little loose, just give it a little more of a press, and like I said, that's fine. This is the wired cape, so obviously for my recommendation on the cape is you really have to work with it. The wires are incredibly strong, and they come folded up in an accordion, so it really does require, my recommendation is don't put the wired cape on the figure right away. What I would do is actually take the wired cape and stretch it out and uncrease the wire, get it all nice and just opened up to the best of your ability. You can see here, this is what it looks like as an accordion. So you want it to flow naturally. Superman's cape, I feel like, reminds me of Spawn. It has a life of its own in a way, the way that it was portrayed, this version. I know a lot of it was CGI, so if you're trying to replicate that look of it kind of having a life of its own, it's best to open up the cape first and then get it in a very opened up position and then put it on the figure and start to mold it. It does take time if you want to get it the best way possible. This was just a quick, I always like this version of like the cape kind of flowing in front of him. There's an Alex Ross painting that's done like that. So, I mean, just like this, just doing a couple minutes in the light box, I just love the character that the cape has, and it really elevates the figure. You can have the figure in a dead museum pose, but yet the cape is really telling the story and bringing the character to life, which I absolutely love. And so that's just, once again, Inart hit it by just giving us two capes, just to be able to show off both versions of the character the way that you want to do it. And this is just swapping the angry sculpt on, and it's, like I said, it looks great. The angry sculpt is really an awesome option for collectors. You have two incredible sculpts to choose from. You can't go wrong with either one. They both look like Henry Cavill, but they do suffer, like I said, with the backside. Depending on how you look at the figure, it does lose a little bit of that realism to a toyish factor, and that's just because of the seam. I kind of wish that they went with a one-piece seamless option, but it would limit the articulation of the figure, so I do understand that. But to be honest with you, I mean, there's not much articulation on, but you can see right here, that's just, it's not very pleasing to the eye. It's a very hard line, and it's a very obvious seam. And like I said, if that hair on the back of the neck just hung down a little bit more over the seam, I think that might have done the trick in keeping that realism. But like from right here, I think it's fantastic. It looks like Henry Cavill pissed off. but moving him just a few degrees one way or another, you start, that toyish aspect starts to trickle in a little bit, which is unfortunate. So now this is my second major issue with the figure, the first being obviously the peg system, and I alluded to this, which was the flight pole system. So as I said, when Inart put this out, a lot of people thought this was a great idea. It was really simple, ingenious. You just unzip the suit and stick a rod in his back. Well, when you unzip the suit right off the bat, if you could see, the hole is not exposed easily. The zipper itself is easy to move, but the issue is the circle, or the hole is at the very base of his spine. And so what I had to do, and I'm just speaking for me, this was not talked about, I don't think, anywhere. So I do not know if this is just mine, but I have to actually slide the suit down to expose the hole fully in order to put the acrylic piece in. So right there, I know it's hard to see on camera because of the metallic, but the hole is not fully exposed. I actually have to, if you open up like that, you see half of it is. But the issue I have is I have to pull the suit down, hold it, and then stick the acrylic piece in. If I just try to do it as is, it's not gonna fit. So I have to actually move this, pull the suit down with my hands right there just to expose that cavity. And then there I can actually put the piece in. Now what that's actually doing, once it's inserted, it's creasing the suit. My suit has creases on both sides because the suit is being pulled down. Now the zipper itself, I leave pretty well open to try to give it some breathing room because I don't want to put too much stress on it. But you can see on the sides that there is evident creasing on that suit. I don't know the long-term effects of it. I don't know if it's going to do any damage or I'm over-exaggerating. But when I saw that, I was really turned off. You can see that bunching. And because it's a screen printed material, I would be shocked if there wasn't something done to this suit, creasing or anything like that within a long period of time. So I want this to be very clear for anyone who's thinking about it. I was gonna have a permanent flight pose, and this totally turned me off. He is not going to be in flight. I had him in flight for a couple of videos doing this review. And like I said, you put the acrylic pole in. It's very simple, very sturdy. I almost wonder if Inart maybe should have given us a dynamic one instead of just a clear rod. Otherwise everyone's flying. I mean, I know it just keeps him vertical, but I wonder if they possibly experimented with a, like I said, a bendable so you can have more flight options. And the piece there was a real pain in the ass to get out. You can see it was that's a good thing, but like I said, you got to be really careful. So for me, I don't like the flight system. My only recommendation is if they would have moved that hole up a little bit higher in the back, we wouldn't have had this issue. And now here is a comparison. This is not the Hot Toys BVS. This is the Justice League. It's the only one I own. Aside from that, the black suit. Nevertheless, I wanted to give you guys the comparison. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I'm not going to go over every feature, but you can see the body, the sculpts, the paint of this. I mean, everything is different. The capes are totally different, and I actually ended up spending more money on a customized cape, and that's kind of the problem where I give the leverage to Inart for them to give us two capes, where Hot Toys, they literally stitched and sewed one cape onto the body. Anyone who has at least the Justice League version, if you wanted to swap that out with like a Jackson cape or somebody else, you had to cause damage to your figure. You had to open not only the zipper, but the zipper was actually stitched closed and the cape was partially stitched to the figure of the Superman. So in order to swap the cape out to something a little more accurate, you had to cause a bit of damage to your figure. Now the Hot Toys one does also have the clips the same way that the Inart one does, but unfortunately you have to break the clips off and they end up falling off into the body. At least that's what it was like 2-3 years ago, and that was what you had to do to remove the cape. As you can see right now, the way the cape is, it's just tucked in those holes. I could pull it out really easily, and you actually had to undo the stitching. So it wasn't just the zipper, it was actually also stitched together. So you weren't able just to do this, but you did have to unzip the cape and undo the stitching as well to get the cape out, because the cape was also stitched to the body of the figure. So it was a process, and those capes weren't cheap. They were in between $60 to $100. And so, like I said, credit to Inart for giving us two capes and making it really, it honestly, I know I'm kind of maybe over exaggerating something so simple, but for someone that owned the Hot Toys version, it was a pain in the ass to swap capes out, and you're spending more money for something that honestly they should have just given us in the first place. And if anyone was curious what the Inart sculpt looked like on the Hot Toys body, it does fit on, just pressure fit, but that is the Justice League Superman with the Inart Angry sculpt. It's not terrible. I mean, if you want to upgrade as a secondary, there's no articulation. He pops right off, but it's definitely not terrible. It's not as bad as I thought it was. The only thing I didn't test out was the cape on the body, but nevertheless. And here is the BVS Batman, which I think these two pair extremely great. I mean, height-wise, they look really good. I don't have the armored version, but these look really, really good. And then, just for comparison, we have that sculpted BVS mask. Is this what the version of Inart is going to look like? I don't know, but I figure for anyone who was curious like me, we're going to compare the sculpts. It is a bigger sculpt. The mouthpiece looks bigger. The eyes look different. The expression looks different. The overall shape of the cowl looks different. Obviously, this cowl was meant to be pulled off of him when he was in the Nightmare, but I was just curious in terms of the overall proportions and the look of it, whether or not there was a huge difference. But there is differences, definitely 100% on these pieces here. And then this is just me popping that BVS cowl. It's very rough, but putting it on the Batman body. And then here is also a little bit of a shocker. This is comparing him to the Inart Bruce Wayne. I did this for paint application purpose, just to see if there was a difference in the skin tone. And also the height difference is pretty surprising. A lot of people were saying the height differential, and I don't have the Inart Batman, but this was a little surprising for me. And then I took a Hot Toys sculpt, which I think is currently the best that I have in my collection, which is the Tom Holland. This is just a comparison between sculpted Inart hair and Hot Toys hair. The Superman is the first sculpted hair that I have from them, so I was curious to see. And still, Hot Toys, I think, excels in this category. Just the layering, the texturing, similar hairstyles, not perfect, but I think the Hot Toys one just has a lot of dimension and character to it versus the Inart just being a little too soft in my opinion. So when it comes to sculpted hair, I still think Hot Toys is the winner here, hands down. And then this is just going to be some outdoor tests to see what this looks like in natural light. So that being said, I want to recap the pros and cons of this figure, if I will. Number one, in no particular order, but I'm going to run off some thoughts. It still stands. I still think Inart they make great products, but they're a shitty company in terms of their business practices, I'll say it that way. This piece itself, it has incredible shelf presence. I think this is the best 1/6 scale Henry Cavill Superman a collector can purchase currently. That being said, the price point at $400 I think is a little steep, because although it comes with these accessories and things like that, ultimately I think a majority of collectors are going to have this posed up pretty much in a museum type pose with next to no accessories. So I would have liked to have seen this figure more or less in like the 350 range, but 400 is definitely the max. I think the capes are phenomenal. I think that was a great option for them to give us swappable capes, which I think is great. The suit is super delicate. I had concerns moving it around and touching it way too much. There already is going to be natural bunching in certain areas where the arms are bent. The body is extremely stiff, which is a good thing. It is, at least on my copy, the joints are they're the stiffest that I've ever touched on a figure, like without a doubt, in terms of trying to move them around. Especially the arms. The arms themselves, the joints are very stiff. The head sculpts, I think, are fantastic. I think they're a dead ringer for Henry Cavill, just minus that piece on the back. The base itself, although I don't like the design of it, the magnet system so far is working, but I think it lacks any visual ingenuity. I wish we would have had something different, which would have been nice. Although I realized I didn't have it in the review. The Kryptonite Spear, I think that was a miss on them for not being able to put a light inside, similar to Gandalf's staff. That would have been really cool if that was lit up. That would have given us a little extra for our money, that made us feel like there was more value there. The packaging overall, the unboxing experience, I mean, if you have Inart, it is something different compared to Hot Toys, 100%. I like the idea of the hands being unique to the figure. The peg system is atrocious. Like I said, it amazes me how Inart has not come up with a peg system, and they're literally changing it figure to figure, and it sucks that when they figure it out, all those previous figures are not going to be able to adopt it, so it sucks. So I don't think changing hands out on this piece is going to be something common that collectors do. And then the flight pole system, I think, was a good idea on paper, but I think the execution of it in the long run isn't a good idea. That hole is too close to the bottom of the spine, which in my opinion will damage the suit over time. And what sucks is that changed my idea of how I'm going to display the figure. Ultimately, how you see him now is how I'm going to have the figure displayed. It actually looks a lot better outside in natural light versus being in a light box. That's why I wanted to do that. Overall, in terms of rating, I would give the figure an 8.5. I wish I could give it more, but I can't because of the situation with the peg and also the flight system. It just really kind of knocked that down for me. It is still a fantastic piece. The price point's a little too high in my opinion, $400 after seeing this. With all the accessories and stuff, like I said, I think when people get this in hand, you're going to see just a lot of photos of it in a museum pose, ultimately. So it sucks with Superman, because what other accessories would you give him? Inart did provide pretty much everything that he interacted with in BVS. So he's just one of those characters where, in my opinion, I would rather have had less accessories and had a cheaper price. Like if this figure was sold, the figure, the base, hands, and the alternate head sculpt, and this thing was like $330, $340, I think that would have been a much more palatable of a thing for collectors to stomach. But in that case, the price was jacked up on it. Also, I wish that the figure did have a rooted hair option. Originally, I didn't care about it, but having it in hand, I think they missed the mark on making this one rooted and just giving us a sculpted option. Whosever idea was to do the sculpted curl, it's completely idiotic and pointless. You will not see it from a distance on your collection shelf. It is just a talking point to try to make it sound better than what it is, but it's completely stupid. Overall, though, I may sound a little too negative about it. nothing is perfect. I'm just being brutally honest with you watching this. However, that being said, I still do love the figure. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fantastic piece. You can see the presence on this is just amazing, but it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I say nothing is. There is things that Inart does have to work on in terms of, like I said, doing the fight pole system. The pegs is probably the most bothersome for me. But like I said, 8.5 out of 10 is what I would give it. I've seen others go higher. I just can't give it a higher score with handling the figure, seeing what I see now. However, it's not something that I hope anyone deters off of, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you watch this review and know what to look out for, I still think you're going to have an amazing piece. And when you pair this up and put it on the shelf, it's an eye catcher. It's still something that it looks so realistic compared to Hot Toys. It really, I don't even want to do a comparison, because it really blows the Hot Toys one out of the water. Now, it doesn't mean Hot Toys can come back with an updated version. We will have to see if that is the case. I would be, interesting to see what they bring to the table if they decide to revisit their version of the Henry Cavill BVS Superman. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I really tried to show everything that I could, and if someone has this on order, what to look out for. So if you have any other further comments or questions, definitely drop a comment in the video below. Make sure to drop a like on this video, and please consider subscribing to the channel if you're watching this for the first time. And then finally, once again, thank you so much to Jeremy Casa at Plastic Hero Collectibles for getting this figure to me so quickly. This was not an influencer batch. He was able just to secure it day one, and I bought it from him, and I'm so happy. And if you guys are interested in Inart figures, reach out to Jeremy. He is able to get them faster than most popular retailers. And so if you're interested in getting something, definitely I'll drop his information in the video below. But once again, thank you so much, Jeremy, and I will see you guys in the next video.